So yesterday, I actually decided that I will be liquidating animals next week. I've taken a look at the weather. I got some rain coming in this week, and I'm taking a look at everything that's going on, and I have decided to liquidate next week. So here's the big idea. So next week I will liquidate the 20 animals. Next week I will liquidate the 18 to 20 animals. And the whole big idea is that the reason that I will do that is because if I take the animals off the lease property, I have a lot of animals here, and all of these animals have been squared away and they're all good to go. I can effectively just put them on grass and they'll be okay. And my death loss has been very low. So the whole thing about all of this going on right now is that my cost of gains, the amount of money that my business is costing me, has actually gone down. I'm actually spending less money on my business. I've actually increased the size of my business by about 30-50%, and it is costing me less money. All right, last month I barely spent anything last month. All right, it was like $590 something, like $592. I didn't have any animals die. My animals are actually gaining more weight than I anticipated, and it's costing me less money. And so I'm taking a look at all this, and I was like, as of today, I'm actually in the net positive on all of my animals. I could even sell the smallest animal out of my herd and I would make a net positive amount of money. All right, I'm actually I actually outperformed myself, okay? And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm not saying that to boast. I'm just saying it is what it is. I was taking a look at it yesterday, and I have decided that I will liquidate next week. And what I would anticipate that happens is when I sell these 20 cattle, I will probably make enough money to buy 30 cattle, and 30 cattle, and I will probably have enough money to buy 2 loads of grain, and maybe 1 load of fertilizer. I anticipate that I will utilize about 1 more load of fertilizer over the next 3 months, and then in the next 3 months I'll have another 20 animals ready for sale. And so the big idea is that next week it's supposed to get hot. It's supposed to get hot, and it's supposed to go up to about 85 degrees, and the weather is kind of drying up. And so I figured while it was dry out there, while it was warm and dry, I would get the animals loaded up and take them to the sale barn. And then the next time it looks like I got some good weather coming in, if I take a look at the weather channel and it looks like there's a chance of raining for 2 weeks in a row, at least one time a week for 2 weeks in a row, I will load up my animals here, and then I will take them over to the lease property, and then I will bring in new animals here, right? And I'll precondition more animals. That's the big idea, right? I'll buy a load of feed. I will buy, I'll have enough money to buy 30 cattle. That lease property will be open, and when I get it all done, I'll make my money, and then I'll figure it out, right? So that's the big idea. It's going to be dry next week. So when it's dry, I will get the cattle loaded up. There's about a 5% chance of it raining every day for, it's not a very, it's supposed to be dry, and it's supposed to be pretty hot next week. And if it looks like it's going to get cool again, and it looks like it's going to rain for, a couple of weeks, I will take my animals here, and I will load them up, and I will put them on the lease property. I will take the money that I make. Right, I will take the money that I make when I sell these 20 animals next week. I will take that money. I will empty my field. I will take that money and I will buy more animals. All right, I'll buy more animals. I'll probably make a net profit of, I'll probably be able to buy okay, so what's probably going to happen is that I will sell 20. I'll make enough money to buy 30. I'll probably also have enough money to buy 1 or 2 loads of grain and a load of fertilizer. All right, that's probably what's going to happen. And so that's what I'll do. Okay, I'll buy a load of grain. I'll buy a load of fertilizer. I'll have enough money to buy 30 cattle, and it may, it'll be about 30 cattle. And I'll have enough money to buy 30. I'll sell 20, and then the next time it looks like the weather's going to turn okay, I'll just take these animals over to the lease property, and then I'll bring in new animals here. All right, that's the big idea. And then along the way, I'll make myself, some money, and then I'll reinvest it. So that's the big idea. All right, next week it is officially time to sell cattle. It's officially time to liquidate, and when I liquidate, I'll be selling 20 animals. But if y'all take a look at these animals, I mean, these animals, they're all effectively good to go, right? I mean, they're all effectively preconditioned, and they're all good to go. They're all eating a lot of food. I'm not having any signs of illness on any of the animals. All of the animals have been very thoroughly vaccinated, right? All of the animals are squared away. If I just leave them on grass for a couple of months, I'll make my money on them, and then I'll just sell them. And, you know, I got a lot of grass out there. You know, and if I can, along the way, at some point, I'd like to bale the hay. And if I bale the hay, it's going to cause all of the grass to revegetate. And when the grass revegetates, I will refertilize the field. And so, you know, when I take a look at all this right now, you know, as time progresses, okay. As time progresses, I will, you know, okay. And I know, like, when you take a, you know, you know, it's kind of like this whole thing about when, you know, taking a look at it through an objective lens. And, you know, in terms of the reality situation, I am, okay, as of today, I actually make more money by myself than effectively anybody doing anything on the entire planet, okay? I already make a drastic amount of money. You know, if I legitimately need money at the end of the month, you know, okay, because here's the thing, and I've already said, you know, this is how I'm running my personal finances, not even my balance sheet. Because let's say I have whatever, let's say I have 80 cattle, let's say I have 100 cattle, let's say I have 100 cattle, right? And I'm taking care of these 100 cattle, and I use my credit card, you know, and here's the thing, I'm not going to use $5,000 a month. What would I buy for $5,000? You know, what do you buy for $5,000 a month? That's an absurd amount of spending, right? You know, it's like if you legitimately had $5,000 a month, you would not be able to spend it. All right, granted that you didn't start doing drugs, granted that you didn't start drinking all the time, granted that you didn't go and do something ridiculous, spending $5,000 a month is borderline impossible. If you legitimately went to the grocery store and tried to buy $5,000 worth of groceries, you couldn't do it. If you tried to use $5,000 worth of electricity, you could not do it. If you tried to use $5,000 worth of water, you could not do it. All right, you know, if you, and you know, because here's the thing. And I've spoken about this in terms of a realistic sense from what I have seen, because in terms of a reality sense, I have made money from, you know, when my first job was at McDonald's, all right? And when I worked at McDonald's, I made minimum wage. It was $7.25 or $7.25 an hour, okay? That was actually one of my favorite jobs. I loved doing that job. I cooked the fries, all right? It was a lot of fun. I loved cooking fries, but it burned your hands up real bad because the oil was popping all the time every time you dropped the fries in there. And the chicken nuggets, all right? You know, my first job was McDonald's, you know, and I've made money from minimum wage all the way up to, you know, 30, you know, as of today, I probably make about $35,000 a month. All right, so I've done it, you know, in terms of money, I've made money from minimum wage all the way up to $30,000 a month, and my income is actually going up, okay? And $30,000 a month is my take-home pay. So, you know, in terms of money, I've made money from the lowest amount of money you can make in America, in Texas. I've made the lowest amount of money, and I also have made more money than effectively anybody on the entire planet. And so when I take a look at it, after about $15,000 a month, the amount of improvement that the money will do is very negligible. All right, it's not going to improve your life in terms of legitimately improving your life. It's not going to do anything. Because here's the thing, and I spoke about this, but if let's say you bring home $15,000 a month, all right, let's say that's your take-home pay. My take-home pay right now is about $30,000 a month, but let's say that you brought home $20,000 a month, right? And you let's say you brought home $15,000 a month, and you lived on $10,000, and you invested $5,000. You just bought $5,000 worth of the S&P 500 every month for the rest of your life. You would effectively have unlimited money. All right, you could easily get yourself a place to live. You could easily get yourself a nice car, a decent car, right? I mean, are you going to buy yourself a mansion and you know, and YOLO? No, you know that would not be a good idea. All right, you know that would not be a reasonable thing to do, right? But in terms of a reality sense, like if you're not an idiot, all right, if you're not an idiot, $15,000 a month, after about $15,000 a month of take-home pay, it's effectively unlimited money. You can legitimately do anything. Granted that you're not an idiot. All right, if you're an idiot, you could legitimately lose you could lose $25 million a month. I mean, the sky is the limit. If you're an idiot, you could lose a massive amount of money. You could lose all the money you ever touch forever for the rest of your life. It could happen. Okay, that there is no light at the end of the tunnel if you're an idiot. All right. And so, from what I have seen, if you bring home $15,000 a month, it's effectively unlimited money. It's effectively unlimited money. You live on $10,000 a month. You can get yourself a nice place to live, and you can get yourself a nice car, and you can buy yourself whatever you want in terms of like food and clothes. Granted that you're not shopping at the Gucci store all the time. Granted that you're not looking for a Lamborghini. You could buy yourself an F-150, and you can get yourself a nice house or a nice apartment, whatever you want. And then you can just, and if you invested if you invested 1/3 of your money, if you lived on $10,000 and you invested $5,000 a month for the rest of your life, you would effectively have unlimited money. You could just legitimately take your $5,000 a month and buy the S&P 500 for the rest of your life. And you would have unlimited money. All right, that's how money works. All right, because, and here's the thing. And in terms of a reality perspective, like me, I bring home about I would say that my take-home pay right now is about is somewhere around $30,000 a month, maybe a little bit more. And in terms of what am I doing with the money? The money is not going to improve my living standards at all. All right, I don't need I don't need a better truck. If I legitimately need a better truck, I will buy one. All right, I can buy one whenever. I just kind of feel like buying. I just kind of feel like I have about $1,500 left that I have to pay off on my truck. About $2,000 that I have to left on pay off my truck, and I'm just gonna pay it off. And it's paid off. I don't owe any more money on it, so I'm just gonna drive it. Drive it and not worry about it. And but here's the thing. And this is actually a very realistic way to look at it. I make about so I bring home about $30,000 a month, and with the money, the only thing that I do with the money is legitimately put it back into my business. Legitimately, I put it back into my business. I don't go shopping for a Lamborghini. I don't go shopping for Gucci clothing. I don't go shopping for a Rolex. I legitimately put all of the money back into my business. That is what I do with money. All right. I put all of it back into my business and then some. I actually invest more than 100% of my income. And it's kind of this strange thing to think about. But me, if I make $1, I actually end up investing more than $1. I actually end up saving more than that dollar. I say, oh, I have $1 on me. I have $1 on me. Well, let me leverage against the dollar that I made. Because, okay, here's another way. Actually, let's think about it this way. Because I talk about it in terms of leveraging against my cattle, in terms of leveraging against my balance sheet. But let's talk about it in terms of $1. Let's say that I bring home $1. And for me to pay my bills, I need to use 10 cents of that $1. Okay. My living expenses are somewhere between 10 and 25% of my income. All of my living expenses. If I paid for all of my bills, it's about 10% of my income, 25% of my income. If I legitimately pay for everything, my mortgage, my truck, my insurance, my bills, everything. All right. When I pay for everything, it's about 10 to 25% of my income. So that effectively leaves me with 75 to 90 cents. So let's talk about it in terms of $1. So I bring home $1 and I say, well, I need to use 10 to 25 cents of this $1 bill for me to pay for everything that I need. My food, my house, my truck, my insurance, my lights, my bills. So I use the 10 to 25 cents. Now I have 75 to 90 cents left over. And so I take a look at my 75 to 90 cents and I invest that money. All right. So I effectively invest that money. I invest about $20,000 a month. So I invest that money. Okay, so now I have that money invested. And I say, okay, well, I invest that money. 75 to 90 cents is entirely my money. It's entirely my money, right? So I take a look at it and I invest that money. When I invest that money, and 2 months later, I say, okay, well, I invested my money and, my investment is going okay. My animals, I went and I purchased these animals. And these animals are actually now in the net positive, and I don't have any debt. I don't have any loans. I don't have any debt. So I take a look at it and I say, well, You know, I put 75 cents into this animal. I put 75 cents into this investment. But as of today, I actually think that this 75 cents, I've taken a hard look at my investment and I have appraised my balance sheet. And I believe that my 75 cents has actually turned into 85 cents. My 75 cents is actually turned into 90 cents. So I take a look at it and I say, well, if my 75 cents has turned into 90 cents, then my 75 cents is still in that investment, right? And so then I go to the bank and I say, hey, banker, give me a loan for 75 more cents. All right, give me a loan for 75 cents. And instead of invest, you know, now in this situation, I have a loan from the bank for 75 cents. I have my own 75 cents, and my investment that I have put my own 75 cents in is now worth 90 cents. That's a very simplistic way to look at it. Let's talk about it in terms of individual dollars. That's effectively how I run my balance sheet. So I make $1. I need to pay for my bills. I gotta, you know, keep the lights on, and I gotta pay for my house, and I gotta pay for my truck, and I gotta pay for my insurance. That costs me about 10 cents. That costs me maybe 10 or 15 cents. So I use 10 or 15 cents to pay for my bills. All right, let's say I use 25 cents. You know, let's just say, you know, whatever. Let's say I use 25 cents. And if I utilize 25 cents, if I use 25 cents to keep my lights on, if I use 25 cents to pay for my truck, if I use, you know, to pay for my truck and to pay for my house and to pay for my bills, that leaves me with 75 cents, right? So I take that 75 cents and I invest it. When I invest that money, I take a look at my investment, and if my investment looks stable, I will then go to the bank and take a loan for another 75 cents, and my investment has appreciated. I take a look at my 75 cents and I say my 75 cents is now worth 90 cents. So let me go to the bank and take a loan for 75 cents. So in this situation, I have made $1 and I have invested $1.50, but my investment is worth about maybe $1, you know, $1.65, right? It's worth about $1.65. And as time progresses, that $1.65 will turn into $1.70, then $1.75, then $1.80, then $1.85. Granted that I continue to do my part, knowledgeably appreciate the investment. That's actually a very good way to look at it. It's you know, because if I talk about it in terms of my money, I mean, you know, it's like oh my God, you know, I think like the people glaze over because it's just such a drastic amount of money. It's such a drastic amount of money. It seems like it's whatever. But if I talk about it in $1, right? If I talk about it in terms of $1, if I bring home $1, if I make $1, out of that $1, I need to pay 10 to, you know, maybe 10 to 25 cents of that dollar to pay for all of my bills. My house, my truck, my food, my water, my electricity, all of it. It cost me about 25 cents out of my $1 that I've made. That leaves me with 75 cents. I take that 75 cents and I invest it. When my investment is stable, I will go to the bank and I take a look at it, and my investment has appreciated. My investment has gone up in value. At that point, I go to the bank and I take a loan for another 75 cents. So in this situation, I have invested 75 cents of my own money. I have turned that 75 cents into 90 cents, and I also anticipate that 90 cents will turn into $1. You know, at the end of the day, the 90 cents will actually turn into about $1.35, $1.40. So I take a look at it and then I say, okay, well, I have this unrealized gain that is occurring. I have actually taken a look at my investment. I understand my investment, and I understand that it is appreciating, and I have a reasonable appraisal value for my investment. All right. And in this situation, I will then go to the bank and take a loan for 75 cents. All right, because if I need to pay the bank back their 75 cents, I could go and get my $1.40 out of the money that I have and just pay the bank back. It won't matter. I would still have money left over. All right, that's actually a very easy way to look at it, and it gives you a very realistic idea of how I do things. All right, here next week I'll be liquidating. Okay, I'll actually be liquidating next week. I've taken a look at my herd. I made a drastic amount of money. I actually don't even know how much money I'm making. All right, I don't exactly know how much money I'm making. I make a lot. As of today, I actually make enough to not really worry about money anymore. I'm not concerned about money. I have legitimately zero shortage of money. All right, I can effectively buy anything on the entire planet, short of like drugs, alcohol, gambling, private jet, yacht. Short of anything like that, I can effectively buy anything. What am I going to do with the money? I'm going to expand the size of my business. Okay, I'll probably be increasing the size of my business by 10 to 20 animals a month. That's what I will do with the money. All right, I'm being flat out honest about it, and and at the end of the day, that's the direction that I have decided to go. And I'm clearly stating exactly what I will do with the money, and and I have a reasonable plan for how I will do it. Right, I will be liquidating my animals off my lease property next week, when it's hot and it's warm and it's and there's no water. And after I do that, if the weather looks like it's going to be good for a couple of weeks, then I will take my animals off this property and I will put them on the lease property. And with the money that I make from liquidating the animals next week, I will buy new animals and put them here, and I will precondition another set of animals. All right. I'm actually, I could actually sell any, even this little steer calf right here. I could sell any of these animals and I would make money. As of today, I have made a drastic amount of money. All right, the cost of my business actually went down, and my the amount of money that I'm making went up by like 40%, and my cost went down by like 40%. I don't really worry about the cost because the cost is already very small. The cost, if I was going to run my business on like maximum expenses, it would cost me like a $2,000 a month. But if I but as of right now, it's costing me about $1,000 a month. All right, so I don't really care about the $1,000. If I need to spend the $1,000, I will. Right, I mean, my business makes like my business makes a lot of money. All right, I make a lot of money. All right, and and in terms of money, if we're not going to talk about it in terms of money, if we're going to talk about it in terms of cattle, over the next week, I will sell 20 calves. I will sell 20 cattle. And when I sell the 20 cattle, I will probably make enough money to buy 30. So I will sell 20, I will buy 30. I could probably buy 2 loads of grain and a load of fertilizer. I could expand my balance sheet by and here's the thing. If I sell 20 and I make enough money to buy 30, and I leverage against my earnings, I would not be buying 30, I would be buying 40. Okay, I would sell 20, make enough money to buy 30, and I would not buy 30, I would buy 40. And when I, granted that I would buy them in groups at a time, I would not buy them all at the same time. I don't have the, well, I'll have to see. All right, I'll have to see. Can I, precondition more animals more rapidly? I'll have to see. All right, I'll have to see what I'll have to see. But that's another way to look at it. All right. I understand that I'm making a drastic amount of money. I've taken a look at it. I make a lot of money. I effectively make more money farming by myself than anybody makes on the entire planet doing anything. Effectively anything. You could do anything. You could be a brain surgeon and I probably make more money than you. All right, you could be a lawyer and I probably make more money than you. You could be a doctor and I probably make more money than you. All right. I understand that I make a very large amount of money. All right, and what am I going to do with the money? Put it back into my business, okay? Grow my business with it. I'm not going to go and buy myself a Lamborghini. I'm not going to go and buy myself a Rolex. I'm not going to go to the Gucci store. All right, I'm not gonna, I will grow the size of my business, okay? But that's a couple of interesting ways to look at what I got going on. Because next week I will be liquidating cattle. And when I liquidate the cattle, I will make a substantial amount of money, okay? And but that's 2 different ways to look at it. You can take a look at it from an individual dollar. I make $1. I use 10 cents out of that dollar to pay for my bills, to pay for my house, to pay for my truck, to pay for my food, to pay for my electricity, to pay for my gas. Let's just say 25 cents, right? Let's just say 25 cents. So I use 25 cents. So I make $1 and I use 25 cents to pay for all of my stuff, to pay for my house, to pay for my bills, to pay for everything. So that leaves me with 75 cents. I take that 75 cents and I invest that 75 cents. I then, after I have invested that 75 cents, I take a look at my investment, and if my investment looks good and it looks like it has appreciated in value, I have reasonably determined that my investment has gone up in value. An unrealized gain. I have determined that my investment has gone up in value. At that point, I would then go to the bank and take a loan for the 75 cents that I put into the business. And if I put 75 cents into the business and I take a look at that 75 cents and I say, oh, well, I've actually turned this 75 cents into 90 cents. And I would anticipate that when it's all said and done, I get about $1.20 back. I put 75 cents into it and I get $1.20 back. And I take a loan for 75 cents. And let's say that it's all, whatever. And then, but if I take a loan for 75 cents, I would also turn that 75 cents that I took from the bank into $1.20, right? So at the end of the day, I would make $2.40 and I would owe the bank 75 cents back. All right, that's a very realistic way to look at it. It's simple and it's a very realistic way to look at it. I take a loan for 75 cents. I have my own 75 cents. I turn that 75 cents or $1.50 into $2.80. So now I have $2.80 and I pay the bank back their 75 cents. Or whatever, with interest. Let's say 10% interest. So I pay the bank $80 back. All right, so I made $2.80. I pay the bank back 80 cents. Right? That's about 10% interest, 8% interest. And then, now I have my $2. The $2 is my money. And if you want to take a look at it in terms of cattle, when I sell these 20 cattle, I will probably make enough money to buy 30 cattle. I will have enough money to buy 2 loads of grain and a load of fertilizer. That's another way to look at it. It's all, whether I have grain or I have cattle or I have fertilizer, it's all the same thing. It's all a commodity. It's all worth money. At the end of the day, if I legitimately want my money back, I can just fertilize the grass, feed the grain to the animal, raise the animal properly, and then just get my money back. It's all the same thing, okay? You don't need cash to have money. Cash is the most ridiculous way to have money. Should you not have cash? No, I mean, you should have some cash, okay? You should have some cash, and I've been talking about this for a couple of days, but in terms of my broader finances, I am effectively in a situation where I pay myself a large amount of money every 2 months, and in all honesty, when I take a look at it, I will probably increase the frequency of my payment to about once a month, and it will be about the same amount of money. So if I have a credit card, and let's say I use $5,000 on that credit card, which would be ridiculous. There is no possible way to spend $5,000. It's not possible. You would legitimately have to do something idiotic to spend $5,000. And think about it like this. If you went to the grocery store, do you think you could buy $5,000 worth of groceries? Do you legitimately think you could do that? Do you think you could sit at home and use $5,000 worth of electricity? Right? Do you think you could use $5,000 worth of gas? Do you think you could buy a car that would cost you $5,000 a month? Granted that you didn't go and do something horribly idiotic. If you're doing something idiotic every single month and it's costing you that much money, that's not good. All right, that's not good. You should probably, have a coming to God. All right, you should probably go and find God, because that's not good. All right, it's not possible to spend $5,000 a month. Granted that you're not an idiot. If you're an idiot, you could spend $10 million a month. If you're an idiot, you could legitimately lose all your money. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you have. The amount of money that you have is not the problem. All right, if you're an idiot, you could lose as much money. Sky is the limit. You could lose $15 billion if, it doesn't matter, all right? You could use as much money. But in terms of a reality sense, like in terms of actually just, going into the world and not having to worry about money, $5,000 a month is a ridiculous amount of money. All right, you could buy, if you have $5,000 a month, you could effectively buy, anytime you go into the grocery store, you can buy anything you want. All the fruits, all the vegetables, all the meat, all of everything. You can buy whatever you want all the time. All right, you don't have to worry about turning your air conditioner off when you leave. All right, you don't have to, worry about your gas bill. You don't have to worry about your car payment. You don't have to worry about your insurance. You don't have to worry about anything. All right, realistically, at about $15,000 a month, it is effectively unlimited money. If you lived on $10,000 a month and you invested $5,000, you just bought $5,000 worth of the S&P 500 every month for the rest of your life, you would effectively have unlimited money. Granted that you did not turn into an idiot. That, you know, that's how money works. And in terms of my, you know, in terms of what am I looking at, you know, I bring home about 30. All right, I bring home about 30. And me, you know, I'm taking a look at it, and it costs me about maybe 10 to 25 cents of every dollar that I make. I spend about 10 to 25 cents paying for my bills. And then the rest of the money goes back into my business. All of it goes back into my business. I buy grain, I buy more cattle, and I buy fertilizer. I pay for lease property, stuff like that. All right, you know, it's effectively unlimited money. After about $15,000 a month, it is unlimited money. Granted that you're not an idiot. All right. And so, you know, but that's what I got coming up. All right. Next week, I'll be liquidating cattle. Y'all have a good one, YouTube.